Good morning. Hey, Warrior Saints. How you all doing? I hope everyone is doing well. God bless you. Welcome to this Tuesday edition of our Crucifixional live stream. Let's pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. O heavenly King, comforter, the Spirit of truth, who art in all places and fillest all things, treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us. Cleanse us from every stain and save our souls, O gracious Lord. Amen. God bless and keep you. Thank you for being with me again as I am solo today. There is some great news. I will not share it with you. It belongs to others to share, but there's some great news. And I am a solo act today. I think I got it square. If I didn't, forgive. You know, I wanted to talk just in brief about this overwhelming feeling of being offended. Right? Like it's a thing that's happening today where everything is really offensive. We see in the headlines things like the Washington Redskins, which you know is an NFL team. Their name has been I think they've had their name for 50 plus years, maybe more. I don't even know. And it has been deemed as offensive to Native Americans. We see things like there was this story where, I don't know if you guys know the story, Halle Berry, the famous actress, was playing or was auditioning for a role of a transgender woman who was becoming a man or had transitioned to a man. And when she was talking about it, she said something about, I really am excited to play her in this role. And apparently, you know, if once someone transitions, they are supposed to be referred to as the other gender or whatever it may be. And she was kicked out of that role because she didn't, you know, they were offended the way she identified them. I remember, you know, like we all know this, there's that thing where people are really, there's that guy, he was the young kid that murdered people in that church, I believe in South Carolina years ago. His name was Dylan Roof, right? Like his haircut, he had a bowl cut, and it became offensive. And they actually, listen to this, the Anti-Defamation League put that type of a haircut, defined that type of a haircut as somehow being offensive, you know, that it carried you know, I forgot if they said racist connotations or not, but whatever it was, you couldn't have this haircut. You know, and then we think about the times where you and I personally, we have encounters with people where they may say something to us that is offensive. They may say something to us that is hurtful or it goes against our sensibilities, and we react with this feeling of being hurt or being offended. I mean, I don't know what else to say, to be offended. And the question I want us to explore today, the thing I want us to look at is, all right, to be sure, there are certain things that shouldn't be said and certain things that are indeed, you know, need to be rectified, absolutely. But I want us to focus on us today, rather than always, you know, looking out about what others need to change. I want to take responsibility for the things that I personally can change. And that means, how do I respond to a situation or an environment or something that is offensive? How do I deal with being offended? And do I need to be to be offended all the time? You better not be offensive. We'll get to that too. But the idea is that, do we have to be so sensitive that every single thing upsets or you know, upsets the apple cart, let's say it like that, making us feel making us feel offended? And I think, you know, God has something to say about this kind of stuff. It's a testament to, well, let's say this. I'm going to read to us, we're going to examine some scripture and see the points that God makes, and I think hopefully it will shed some light on us in our dealings with this. So the first thing I'm going to open to us from the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes, as you may or may not know, is wisdom literature in the Old Testament. We're going to look at chapter 7, verse 21 and 22, I think. All right, let's look here. Yes. How about 20 through 22? Surely there is not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. Kind of like that. None of us are perfect, I think is what he's saying, right? Do not give heed to all the things that men say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. your heart knows that many times you have cursed others. It's a fascinating statement there. First of all, don't worry so much about looking for the perfect man. Even the righteous man has sinned, right? This is what he says in verse 20. There is surely not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. So, are we expecting perfection from other people and holding them to an impossible standard when we become offended by things, the things that people say to us or the things that happen in the world? How can we expect someone to be perfect when we know none of us are perfect? What that says to me then is that it's not really a matter of looking for truth. It's just a matter of waiting for the moment when somebody's going to screw up, right? Because if nobody's perfect, inevitably he or she will screw up, and therefore you're just waiting for that moment to have an opportunity to pounce and say, I gotcha, right? So, if we are really looking to find someone if we're really looking to overcome that kind of stuff, we have to say, look, all right, this guy's not perfect. He or she made a mistake. I want to talk about that one in a little bit as well. I'm going to jump now to perhaps one of my favorite books, the book of Proverbs, which you hear us talk about all the time. Fabulous stuff. Chapter 19, verse 11. Good sense makes a man slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. So, good sense, wisdom, says be slow to anger. And it is a strong man's, it's his glory, it's his glory to overlook any offense. This one's going to play out for us as we get to our practical points in just a few moments as well. But you can see the very statement is this, the very simplicity of the statement. It's just simmer down, Gina. You don't have to be so upset all the time. You don't have to be looking for it all the time. It is what it is. People will do rotten and offensive things, unfortunately. Hey, wait till you hear James. So do you, right? But people will do things, and you know what? We don't have to be so irritated about it all the time. Like when somebody attacks us, someone says something hurtful, all right. Okay, just don't get angry about it. Slow down a little bit before you react. And that leads us finally to the beautiful book of James. Now we jump to the New Testament. This epistle to James, or from James, supposedly, we see in chapter 1, verse 19. Know this, my beloved brethren. Let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. For the anger of man does not work the righteousness of God. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and even more so, slow to anger. For being angry doesn't work the righteousness of God. So it's talking about, as I prepared this, I picked on myself, but let's just say it. I was going hard after myself. The slow to hear, the quick to hear and the slow to speak thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to lay it out there for us. I think the challenge, this is what I want you to look for. This is the exciting, cool thing that, you may want to give a shot, is instead of worrying about what happens offensively to other people and how we want to call out other people, those things are real. But let's talk about how we can be less offended and less upset by things. Excuse me, how we can just be stronger men and women. I think one of the things that I'm offended by is the fact that everyone tells us we all have to be offended all the time. Where is the strength in the American man and woman? Where is the strength? Where is the maturity, the wisdom to overlook and see that these things will happen to us? Why do we have to allow ourselves to be told that we're supposed to be this small, soft bunch? Somebody said something terrible. I'm gonna tell you, and maybe I shouldn't say these things on the internet, but I'm gonna just tell you publicly. I'm Lebanese. My ethnic roots are Lebanese. I'm an American. I was born in America, but my ethnic roots are from Lebanon. And I have been, called a towelhead. I've been called a camel jockey. I've been called a Muslim terrorist and other things, some even more crass. I have never ridden a camel. I don't have a towel, the hatta that I put on my head, and I'm not Islamic, nor am I a terrorist. I'm a Christian, obviously a Christian priest. And I've been called all those things. And you know what never happened? I died. I never died. You know what else never happened? I didn't bleed. You know what else never happened? I wasn't harmed. I didn't lose anything of great value because someone chose to call me an offensive word or call me an offensive name. Did they sting? I don't know, maybe. But ultimately, the point of it was that when someone spoke to me offensively, nothing happened. Now look, before I go any further, I recognize there will be a contingency of people out there who will say, yes, Father Chris, but by virtue of the fact that people say these offensive things are systemic and cause all these other lands, I got it. I understand that. That's an argument that you need to handle and you need to make. What I'm saying is that for us today, when it happens, because it will, how do we choose to respond to it? That's the key. It doesn't mean that because someone called me a camel jockey that I have to stop being, a proponent for, Lebanese advancement, right? Like, in other words, it doesn't mean that just because they said something to me and I'm trying to be strong, that I don't fight for what's right. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is, how did I deal with it and how did I take it? We go back to Ecclesiastes, that first verse that we looked at. Now we're going to go through each of those 3 verses and throw the practical points out there. So hopefully we can learn how to man up. Just say it. Man up through it when people are rotten and offensive. The first one again, Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 20 and following. 21. Do not give heed to all the things that men say, lest you hear your servant cursing you. Your heart knows that many times you have cursed others. Like, I love it. Don't worry about what other people say. Like, when people have called me those whatever you call them, racial slurs, being a towelhead or whatever they say about my ethnic heritage, like, the temptation is to want to respond. But the more I think about it, I'm like, you know what, like, it's stupid. It's a stupid comment. It's based not in fact, right? Like, I don't wear the dishtesh and the hata. I don't wear that stuff, right? Like, I don't have it. I don't. Like, where would they have even gotten it? They probably have never seen me dressed up in it. Maybe I did, yeah, when I was younger in a costume, dressed up for Halloween or for a camp thing. But, like, it's just a dumb comment. So why am I getting all worked up over something that's actually factually not true, right? The second part of it is, I want to recognize that, like, why do people even do that? This is a hard thing to come to because when we feel something is personal, we think that it's personal. But the reality of it is, it's probably, and I'm going to go all the way out there and say 99% of the time, it's not personal against you, right? Like, why do people attack other people based on any characteristic, whether it's race or the 2 genders or age or thought process or religion or philosophy? Why do people attack that stuff? Is it because you have necessarily done anything wrong or said anything wrong or because somehow you're inherently wrong? Like I say, 99% of the time the answer is no. People attack and assault us because of baggage that they are carrying inside themselves. You understand? Like, inside many, many people, there is great chaos. And the only way for them to find balance and stability in an otherwise seemingly chaotic world is to create chaos outside of them that matches, right? I heard that saying from a very wise man. So in other words, if it's chaotic in here, I'm off kilter in the world, unless I make the world chaotic, and then all of a sudden everything matches. And so one method that people use to create that matching chaos is by bringing an attack against you. Do you know what I'm saying? Do you follow that? Like, the idea is that it's easier and better for me to attack you, and to do that is usually, they call it an argument ad hominem, where they attack the man. That's what ad hominem means, to the man, to say this person because of something that person cannot affect, cannot change, cannot alter. I am Lebanese. My parents were. My grandparents were. That's just how it happened. I have no control over that. By the time I came into existence, it was already decided. So you can attack me for that, but there's nothing that I can do about that. So in order to make the chaotic person make themselves feel better, they insult that. Do you understand it? And so why? Because of the baggage that they carry inside. Now, when you know that, if you can keep in your mind, and Father Chris said it, 99% of the time, these assaults are because of the chaos inside the one who is assaulting you, who is trying to offend you, you can then say, all right, Maybe instead of being offended, I should be compassionate, because that person who's offending me is suffering, right? I know that's a funny way to look at it, because they're hurting you and you want to be compassionate, and I don't want to say feel sorry or pity them, but to recognize that man or that woman are suffering. They are being enveloped, if you will, by sin. They're submitting to sin, at least. And that sin is causing them not to fix their own chaos, but to throw it on me. And you know what? God have mercy on me, and God have mercy on them. When we can have that compassion, it doesn't mean that we let it go. It doesn't mean that we let water go under the bridge. It doesn't mean that we don't stand up for what's right. But it means that we can empathically understand that dude is doing that because he's a mess. And God, I feel sorry about that. Do you know what I'm saying? So the second part of that whole thing is to say, recognize that people do that because they are hurting. So that can help us understand that I don't need to be quite so offended by what they said. And then that was 2. 2b is the rest of this verse that says, for you know many times that you have cursed others. Don't forget that we don't want to be offended by people who are cursing us. We also have to be honest and say, you know what, Gina, I've done the same thing. Like, I will tell you, I mean, I'm confessing all my sins publicly on the internet. I have spoken ill of people. I mean, I try not to do it. I definitely don't want to do it. And when I do, I always, unanimously, universally, 100%, whatever, I feel bad after I've done it. Like, who wants to be a jerk? I don't, at least. Let's say that. But I know, and if I'm honest, I've spoken ill against people. I've spoken ill to people. I have offended people for sure. I hope that I have asked them for forgiveness if I've done so. But look, my point of it is what? You're that jerk, right? Remember, like when you're saying, that guy's a jerk, he called me a towel head. What a jerk. Well, I've been that guy to someone else. Do you understand it? Like, in other words, Ecclesiastes is telling us, be very clear, you are that which you are attacking. You are that which you don't like. You are that of which you find abhorrent. Don't be that, right? That's the message there. That's the message. Don't be that. Okay, so practical point number 1 is, remember, from Ecclesiastes, don't worry about all of the things that people say. We know it's because of the chaos they feel inside. Have some compassion. And connected, don't you be an offensive person to anyone else. Practical point number 2, comes to us from Proverbs chapter 19, verse 11. Again, you hear, good sense makes a man slow to anger, and it is his glory to overlook an offense. This one, our practical point, it's very much like practical point number 1 with all its parts. But, like, you know, we understand, why do people do the things that they do when they do these rotten things 99% of the time? It is because they are sinners. And God is asking us, reminding us first in Ecclesiastes, you also are a sinner. But overlook them and forgive their offensive statements. Right? Like, we talk about crucifixional living all of the time. I mean, that's our thesis, right? That is what the gospel message is. It is the gospel of the cross. And so as we teach crucifixional living, I don't know, that means I got to put aside my ego a little bit and say, you know what, you hurt me, I forgive you. Forgiveness is a very difficult thing. Well, let's say it like this. It is difficult, but it's very simple. And at some point, all of those things we've already talked about, that empathy, realizing the chaos in someone's life, why they would do this, can factor in for sure. But to forgive becomes difficult because our ego gets in the way. Like, how dare they? And I'm not going to let this go. The problem with that is that when you don't let it go, you hold on to something. It's stuck in your heart, and it will haunt you, right? So the first part of that forgiveness is you do it so that it doesn't haunt you. The second part is you do it because God has asked us in Proverbs, has commended the one who forgives, who overlooks the offense. And lastly, I think the third part, we do that because we also free the other person from their suffering, right? Like, I'll tell you, I don't have any specific examples that come off to the top of my head at this moment, but boy, when I've hurt somebody, my bride or family or friends or anyone in the church or just some random on the street, and they are bigger than I and say, you know what, it's okay, I forgive you. I feel a relief. Like, oh my gosh, because I'm putting pressure on myself. I'm sure you do the same. I'm putting pressure on myself because I know that I've hurt someone. And no, I don't want to hurt someone. I don't want to carry that burden. I don't want to do that. I don't want to carry the burden of knowing that I did that, voluntarily or involuntary. And so when you forgive someone, you are now showing, and this is, I mean, you want to talk about crucifixional, this is the top. You are living crucifixionally in that you are showing that person that you are setting aside your ego and to maintain your offense so that you might show them love. Do you see it? Like, what greater gift can you give someone than to set them free? Do you follow it? Like, in other words, if someone hurts us, like I was telling you, you feel it. You feel the weight of that. And sometimes in order to to get out from underneath that weight, we double down on our position and make it even worse. If you free them, you free them. You see it. I hope that was clear. In my mind, that's powerfully clear from both being the one who received and the one who gave. So it's a powerful thing. Set them free by overlooking the offense and granting forgiveness. I'll say this last note on forgiveness. It's hard to do sometimes. People say, it's so hard to forgive because we're human, we have the emotion, and we're attached to it, and we're connected, to the suffering that they gave us. Yes, I got it. Running a marathon is also difficult. Nobody just wakes up on a Tuesday and says, I'm going to go run 26.2 miles. It just doesn't happen. To run a marathon, you have to train, and you start out slow. Right? No one is born a marathon runner. They start out as a person who puts on their sneakers and laces up and hits the road, and maybe the first day they run a mile. And then the second day they run a mile and a half. And over time they build up to a 5-mile run. And when that gets comfortable, then they go to 10, and then there's a dietary regimen that goes with it, and there's proper sleep schedules. And all of this long training goes into this process so that at the point we began, by the time we get to the actual race, we're in very different physical condition. So we've done all of the prep and done all of the practice of running so that when we get to the actual race, which is very difficult, we're going to be ready and prepared to do it. Likewise, I think forgiveness is the same way. No one is a natural born forgiver. Forgiveness, we become good at forgiveness when we practice forgiveness. And that means that you have to start, I would say, even today. Start by forgiving me for my sins. I beg you for that. And then look around you and find those people who may have hurt you, those people who you may have offended, or the people who may have offended you, and grant them forgiveness. You will find that in time, I don't know that it ever becomes, well, maybe it does, just become easier because we're good at it. So practice forgiveness in order to becoming a forgiving person. I talked a lot. Let's say this. Remember, in order to be a marathon runner, you have to practice your running. In order to be a forgiver, you have to practice forgiveness. That's all. That's what it is. All right, practical point number 3. We jump back to the New Testament and to the Epistle of James, chapter 1, verse 19. Know this, my beloved brethren, let every man be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger. I said at the outset, this is one that I actually suffer with. I am very not quick to hear and am very fast to speak. Like, you guys have been with me for a long time. How much do I not talk? Right? Like, all I do is talk. Part of that is my own process. Like, I'm thinking through things out loud, and you just have to endure it. But there's wisdom in this statement of James that, look, man, the wise man, the leader, the strong woman, they're the ones who listen. Not only are we gathering information, but we are giving the other person an opportunity to work out and reason their own thoughts, right? So if someone is being offensive to us, the temptation is what? You said what? Let me tell you, it's because you did this, and it's you, and it's not me, and how dare... And then you have a fight going. Okay, you may be right. Probably are. Like I said, they're probably got chaos going on inside. But the temptation, and really if I can say it, what the devil wants from us is this division, this diabolical dichotomy, so that we attack back. Instead, and this is really hard, and I don't even know, my professor might say I was wrong, but I don't even know that there's any way to say it's simple, because it's really hard when you are being assaulted to be slow to speak and quick to hear. But if you can find the way, there are tools, one day we'll talk about it, we've already done lessons, we'll do more, but if you can find tools about how to keep your mouth shut, even when you are being attacked, and listen to the other person, hearing the words that they want to speak. And in some sense, I'm going to give you this terrible analogy, allowing them to purge their emotion and maybe even some of that chaos. You're going to find some success in that. One of the images that I use that is very terrible but very clear is the image of a pimple. I mean, it's gross, right? But what happens when you have one? You pop it and you get the funk out. And then it begins to heal, right? That's the idea. If you are able, even if somebody is assaulting you and offending you, and even with malice, trying to offend you, if you are able just to and you have an opportunity to allow them to get the funk out. And with that, there goes a cathartic healing. I mean, it's like, how often have we exhaled after all of the venting, right? So often people say to me, Father, thank you so much for letting me vent. Thank God, but I'm glad to have an ear to be able to listen to the venting, because when we get that out, man, do we feel better, right? Because we got it out. And so if we are not quick to hear, but are quick to respond, we might prohibit that release, that catharsis. Do you understand? And so the practical point, number 3, which is brutally hard because our ego gets in the way, because we want to defend ourselves and say why we're right and they're wrong. If we can control that and just listen, you will find that more often than not, for sure, more often than not, there will be resolution and healing after that, right? Really, healing after that. I'll end with this. I've been chatty Cathy today, but what I found in my ministry is that on more than one occasion, when people have come to me and called for time in my office or, special counseling or confession type of meetings, and they have just blasted me, and I have gotten back to them, tit for tat, I lose. But in those few and those rare moments where I have been able to just say, all right, this gal needs to purge. This guy needs to purge. Just listen and let him do it. Even when they're purging to me about me, and I keep it zipped or listen and reflect properly, by gosh, when at the end of those conversations, there's healing and there's love and there's a restoration. Do you understand? That happened to me even just this last week, where I gave, to the best of my chatty Cathy ability, I gave somebody the ability, the opportunity, the space, just to vent. And you know what happened after the end of the venting? We're in a good place. Gooder than we were before, right? So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing how that works, that if we find and follow the wisdom of the Apostle James and listen first, speak last, speak less, hear more, and definitely when you're going to get angry, do it slowly, as he says, that you will find really more often than not healing, even if the offense is against you. This was fun today, at least for me. Part of it is I'm just, venting and purging it myself. We're going to talk about being offended and how to overcome that. Today, I wanted us to focus on the way we respond. There are certainly offensive things in the world. Absolutely. And whether you like the names of sporting teams or actors and actresses or, a certain kind of haircut or the rotten things that people have said to you, those are things that are somehow, in some sense, outside of your control as far as reactions. I'm not telling you to stop any social cause you're interested in. I'm just telling you to say, more importantly, we want to focus on how we handle that and how we respond to the offense. And ultimately, it is to recognize that through these 3 texts in Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, and the Epistle to James, that there are much better ways, dare I say, crucifixional ways of handling those offenses so that we are not carrying so much of a burden with us. I want you guys to also join us on the Way of the Warrior Saint. Visit us at warriorsaints.org. That is where you will find our online library, this full gamut of teachings about all of life's topics. And every week we add more and more and more. It's growing. The movement is growing. It is, it's a pretty fun thing, and we encourage you. We're thankful when you guys do it. Each day it grows. I don't know what to say to the sweet Lord Jesus, but thank you. And to thank all of you beautiful people. Do us the kindness. Share it. Visit us at warriorsaints.org. and share it. Tell your friends, tell your family. You know how the Facebook, YouTube algorithms keep you tightly locked in a nice little circle. Let's get out there. It just keeps growing. It keeps growing. It keeps growing. And we need your help to do that. So please share us, like us, hit the bell on YouTube, all that good stuff. Don't forget, there is a 30% coupon if you just use the promo at checkout, COVID30. COVID30 at checkout, it gives you 30% off. I love you, beautiful people. Tomorrow is Wednesday. We will not have our live stream nor our Bible study. Well, let me say this. On Wednesday nights, we teach the book of Revelation. This Wednesday, we are not going to teach the book of Revelation. We will hopefully resume next week. But depending on the strength that Father Chris has or the ability, we may just surprise you with a live stream tomorrow morning. Anyways, I don't know. Don't count on it, but don't think it won't happen either. I don't know. We'll just see. Maybe a surprise. At any rate, love you people. God bless you. Till tomorrow, keep walking on the way of the warrior saint.